Welcome to the Smart Keys podcast. If you are listening to this right now, chances are you're going to lose probably up to an hour of your life today just looking at emails you aren't even going to answer.
Yeah, which is just a staggering amount of time when you add it up over a week.
Exactly. And that's why we're framing this deep dive as a really crucial strategic session. Because honestly, the math behind our daily communication has just become entirely unsustainable for most professionals.
It really has. I mean, it's fundamentally broken.
Right. So the source material we're working through today is this excellent piece by Felix Romer from smartkeys.org. It's titled Conquering an Email Backlog. And what's fascinating is it approaches the inbox not as this, chore to be maintained, but as a system that needs to be engineered.
And engineered is the perfect word there because the hard data Romer presents to set up this problem is, it's brutal. The average U.S. office worker is currently processing somewhere between 90 and 120 plus emails every single day.
Wow. Over 120 a day.
Yeah, every single day. And, if you consider yourself incredibly fast and you spend a measly, 30 seconds reading and deciding what to do with a single message, that 120 email volume means you're losing 45 to 60 minutes of daily productivity just on the initial read-through.
Just reading them, not even doing the work.
Right, exactly, just glancing and deciding. And the article brings in productivity expert Carl Pollane, who puts a very sharp point on this whole thing.
Yeah, Pollane recommends that professionals block out a dedicated 45 minutes every single day strictly to stay current.
He does. But the kicker is his warning. He says if you skip just one day, like say you're traveling or you're stuck in back-to-back meetings all Tuesday, you are looking at a 90-minute catch-up session the next morning.
90 minutes just to get back to zero? I mean, that's almost an entire morning wiped out.
Which is exactly how the backlog starts, It's not just the lost hour, it's the cognitive load of 120 micro-decisions. Every time you open a message, your brain has to assess the context, evaluate the urgency, and figure out the next action.
Yeah, that burns an immense amount of mental glucose.
Oh, absolutely. It's exhausting.
So I want you, the listener, to think about your own inbox right now. If it's growing by, say, 10 or 20 unresolved emails every day, you're essentially sitting in a leaking boat.
That's a great way to picture it.
Right. I mean, you can sit there with a bucket bailing out water by answering emails all day long. But if you never actually patch the leak, if you don't fix the underlying system governing how those messages are handled, you're inevitably going to sink under the weight of decision fatigue.
Because surviving isn't the same as sailing.
Exactly. Surviving is not sailing. And that is the mission of Romer's article today. He outlines these highly actionable strategies, some really clever software hacks, and structural mental shifts to basically patch the boat, bail the standing water, and then install an automatic pump so you never have to bail manually again.
I love that. And we should probably start with why we fall behind in the first place, because the article points the finger directly at a very specific psychological flaw.
Right, our instinct to treat all incoming information equally.
Yes. Romer calls this the latest and loudest trap.
The latest and loudest. So how does that play out in a typical workday?
Well, in a normal work environment, our default behavior is just entirely reactive. Let's say you're working on a deep strategic project. Maybe you're modeling some complex financial data or drafting a big proposal.
You're in the zone.
Exactly, you're in deep focus. And then an email ping flashes on the screen. Our brain practically demands that we look at that novel stimulus.
It's like a slot machine.
It really is. So we click it, we read it, and then we realize, oh, this requires a complicated response, or I need to find a file I don't have on hand. So what do? We leave it in the inbox to deal with later.
Which means we just interrupted a state of deep focus for absolutely no operational gain.
None at all.
We didn't finish the email, and we completely derailed the project we were actually supposed to be doing.
Precisely. You just blew up your productivity. So to break this cycle, the source introduces this concept of first-pass triage. And the mental shift here is critical.
Walk us through the triage.
Okay, so when you open your inbox for the first time in the morning, you are not there to answer emails. You are just there to sort them. You have to ask two very strict questions for every single message.
Okay, what are they?
Number one, what is it? And number two, what do I need to do with it?
So you're forcing an immediate categorization right off the bat.
Yes, you have to separate informational messages from actionable messages.
Informational being things you just need to file away or read later for context, like, I don't know, a company newsletter.
Exactly, or an industry update. If it's just informational, you move it out of the inbox immediately to a reference folder. But the actionable ones are the ones that actually require a decision, a task, or a response from you.
Okay, so if it's actionable, you determine the next step and move it to a dedicated action folder.
Right, and you process the inbox until it's completely empty. But notice you haven't actually typed a single reply yet.
Okay, wait, I need to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Relying on this process don't reply rule feels highly inefficient to me. I mean, if I open an email, read it, figure out what it is, and then intentionally don't reply to it, aren't I just double handling the work?
It does feel like that, yeah.
Because I'm going to have to open it again later to actually write the response. That just sounds like a massive waste of time.
It sounds totally counterintuitive until we look at the mechanics of human attention. The article really leans on Carl Polane's two-step flow here to explain why this actually saves massive amounts of time.
Okay, how does double handling save time?
Well, step one is the triage we just discussed, right? You move those actionable items into a dedicated folder, which is often called Action This Day.
Right.
Then step two is replying later, but during a highly specific scheduled time block. The reason double handling is actually more efficient is because of something called cognitive momentum.
Meaning, the brain state required to sort information is fundamentally different from the brain state required to execute a task.
Entirely different. If you try to reply instantly to everything as it comes in, you're constantly context switching.
Oh, man. Context switching is a killer.
It destroys your focus. Imagine jumping from a complex negotiation with a vendor to approving a quick internal expense report, back to the vendor, and then over to a marketing spreadsheet.
Right, your brain gets whiplash.
Exactly. Every jump leaves what they call a residue of attention on the previous task. That context switching fatigue just ruins your ability to do deep work.
So by batching the processing into, say, one 15-minute window and batching the replying into a separate 30-minute window later, you protect that focus.
Yes. You basically operate as the mailroom clerk for 15 minutes, sorting the mail.
Yeah.
And then you operate as the executive later, making the decisions.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for the new emails coming in today. First pass triage stops the act of bleeding.
Right, stops the boat from sinking faster.
But honestly, I think the anxiety most professionals feel isn't really about today's 5 difficult emails.
No, it's the backlog.
It's about the 4,000 unread emails currently staring at them for the past 3 years. I mean, triage doesn't fix the water already sloshing around our ankles, right?
Yeah.
How does this system handle that massive existing pile?
That requires a bulk reduction strategy. You just cannot implement a sleek, new, minimalist workflow if the sheer visual clutter of thousands of old messages drains your energy the second you log in.
It's visually exhausting.
So the source recommends an aggressive tactic called the old inbox sweep.
Right, this is where you take any email thread older than 30 days and you move it entirely out of your main view into a single staging folder.
Yes. You just literally name a folder old inbox and drag everything older than a month into it. Boom, out of sight.
And then the article suggests using search filters to clear out massive chunks at once from that old folder. For example, filtering by a specific sender, like a software company that sends daily updates, or filtering by a topic like retail promos, and just deleting hundreds of them with one single click.
Exactly. The goal here is to shift from line-by-line reading to bulk decision-making. You're not agonizing over individual emails anymore.
Right. And the source also highlights a structural approach to viewing your inbox called the Yesterbox view.
Oh, the Yesterbox is a game changer.
It really is. This is a configuration where you set your email client to show you yesterday's items first rather than today's live feed.
Which fundamentally changes how you view a notification.
Yeah, because if you're only looking at yesterday's emails, the list is static. It's not going to grow while you're looking at it. You completely remove the anxiety of that unpredictable live feed constantly popping up.
It transforms the inbox from this endless treadmill into a closed list. You know exactly how many messages you have to process for the day, and when you hit the bottom, you are done.
But, doing this manual bulk processing sounds completely exhausting, though. Even with search filters, sorting through 4,000 emails is a daunting project.
It is a lot of manual labor if you do it the traditional way. But the source mentions some specialized software to handle the heavy lifting here, specifically a tool called Maelstrom.
Yeah, Maelstrom is fascinating because it visualizes your inbox differently.
Right. Instead of a chronological list of endless messages, it gives you an analytical dashboard of your data.
And the article notes that their free trial actually lets you process up to 25% of your latest 5,000 messages, which is huge.
It is. And what it actually does is it automatically analyzes those thousands of emails and groups them. It groups them by sender, by attachment size, and by subject line.
So instead of deciding what to do with 5,000 individual emails, the dashboard just shows you, hey, you have 600 emails from one particular newsletter. Or you have 50 emails with massive video attachments from a specific client project that ended 2 years ago.
Exactly. And then you make one single decision about that whole category and you delete hundreds of items simultaneously.
That is so much faster.
It's incredibly efficient. And it also includes automated features that manage the flow going forward. For example, it has an auto-expire function.
Oh, right. Where you can set rules so that certain types of low-value messages, like daily promotional alerts or internal system notifications, automatically delete themselves after, say, 72 hours.
Yes. Because if you haven't read a system alert in 3 days, you probably don't need it. It's obsolete.
And there's also a chill feature, which basically functions as a snooze mechanism.
Right. So if an email arrives, but you know you don't need to deal with it until next Friday, you use the chill feature. The software literally hides the email in a temporary folder and drops it back into your main inbox on the exact date you specify.
Okay, that's a cool feature, but I need to push back heavily on the underlying premise of that 30-day old inbox sweep we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are we really telling professionals to take 3,000 unread emails, dump them into a folder called old, and largely ignore them? I mean, that feels like sweeping the clutter on your floor into a closet right before guests arrive.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah, but the mess is still there. What happens when we inevitably miss something crucial?
It feels incredibly risky, I know. And the article addresses this fear of dropping the ball head on, but we have to look at the math of that risk versus the reality of decision fatigue.
Okay, what's the math?
Well, the author provides a very pragmatic quote here. He says, if something important resurfaces, the sender will usually follow up.
Oh, man. But relying on a client or a manager to follow up feels like a massive professional liability. What if they think you're just ignoring them?
It is a liability, sure, but so is operating in a state of constant overwhelm where you're missing new urgent communications because they're buried under 3 years of digital hoarding.
That's a fair point. You're already missing things anyway.
Exactly. The psychological value of getting that backlog out of your immediate visual field gives you the momentum required to actually implement a clean system. Seeing 4,000 unread emails literally triggers a physiological stress response.
It really does. You open your laptop and immediately feel defeated.
Right. Moving them to an archive folder drastically reduces that stress. And think about it. If an email is 45 days old, the reality is that the project has likely moved on, the crisis was resolved by someone else, or the opportunity has just passed.
So you quarantine the old data so you can cleanly operate in the present.
Exactly.
And to operate cleanly in the present, the article outlines a highly restrictive 5-label architecture to replace the old clutter.
Yes, this is key. You strip away all those complex, color-coded project folders we all have.
Right, and you replace them with just 5 tags. Action required, awaiting response, defer, delegate, and archive.
The genius of those 5 labels is that they represent verbs, not nouns.
Verbs, not nouns. Elaborate on that.
Well, most people organize their inbox by nouns, right? They create a folder called Q3 Marketing Campaign or Vendor Contracts.
Guilty as charged. I have a million of those.
We all do. But noun-based filing systems turn your inbox into a filing cabinet where tasks basically go to die because the folder name doesn't tell you what you actually need to do with the contents. But verb-based labels like action required or awaiting response tell you the exact status of the task.
Okay, so we've quarantined the past with our 30-day sweep, and we're triaging the present using our 2-step flow and our verb-based labels.
Right.
The final structural shift the article talks about is engineering the future. How do we integrate this clean inbox into our broader business systems so that a backlog never, ever returns?
This is where the strategy evolves from basic email management to true workflow automation. The ultimate goal here is to end what Rumor calls the ping-pong effect.
Which means we need to stop treating the inbox as the primary place where work happens.
Exactly. The inbox is a gateway, not a workbench.
So the source details how to build automation bridges using tools like Zapier or IFTTT, which literally stands for if this, then that.
Right.
And these platforms allow you to automatically route relevant emails into the actual specialized software where your team collaborates, like Slack, Asana, Trello, or a CRM truck.
A customer relationship manager.
Let's walk through how this actually works mechanically because this is where massive efficiency gains are found. Let's say you receive a standard invoice from a vendor every month.
Okay.
And instead of you opening the email, downloading the PDF, logging into your accounting software, and manually uploading the file, you set up a trigger in Zapier.
Right. So the rule says, If I receive an email from this specific vendor email address with the word invoice in the subject line.
Exactly. That is the if this part of the equation.
The then that is the action the software takes on your behalf. So Zapier automatically strips the PDF attachment from the email, creates a new task card in your finance team's Trello board, titles the card with the subject line of the email, attaches the PDF, and assigns the task to the finance lead with a due date of Friday.
That is wild. All of that happens in the background without you ever even opening the original email.
Yep. You essentially remove the inbox as the middleman for collaborative work.
That is incredibly powerful. But, even with the best automations routing the routine data, you as a professional still have to write and send emails yourself eventually.
Oh, of course. Automation can't write your strategic emails.
Right. And the source discusses the absolute strategic genius of when to send those replies. It highlights tools like Boomerang for Gmail, which allow you to intentionally schedule your outgoing messages.
Boomerang is brilliant. It works by taking an email you've just drafted, removing it from your outbox, holding it on their servers, and then injecting it into the mail stream at the precise minute you scheduled it for.
So the timing of your reply becomes a strategic lever you can pull to control your workday.
Exactly.
The article suggests using this to hold your responses and schedule them to send in the late afternoon.
Yes.
But again, I've got to ask, in a highly competitive, fast-paced business world, if I hold an email I wrote at 10:00 a.m. and delay the delivery until 4:00 p.m., isn't that a competitive disadvantage?
It sounds like one.
Aren't clients and bosses going to get frustrated if I'm intentionally throttling my response times?
It's a very common concern. But the strategic insight here is about controlling the expectation of availability. Sending afternoon replies intentionally prevents same-day back and forth. That's the ping-pong effect we mentioned earlier.
Okay, break that down.
Think about it. If you reply to a client at 9:00 a.m., they're going to read it, they'll probably have another thought, and they'll reply to you at 9:40 a.m.
Right, and then you reply at 9:30.
And suddenly, you are playing inbox ping-pong all morning. You're just reacting to their stream of consciousness rather than doing your deep work.
Oh, I see. So by delaying the response until late afternoon, you're intentionally breaking their expectation of an instant chat.
Yes.
You're putting a speed limit on the conversation.
Precisely. If your email arrives in their inbox at 4:15 p.m., they are likely wrapping up their day. They will read it, but they probably won't process it and write a comprehensive response until the next morning.
Wow. So you just bought yourself an entire day of uninterrupted focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are protecting your most valuable asset, your concentrated attention.
The article also touches on enforcing these boundaries through platform-level Do Not Disturb windows and using priority-only alerts on your mobile device.
Which is crucial. You have to train people how to interact with you.
Right. The underlying rule is that if something is a true hair-on-fire emergency, colleagues and clients will call you or use an instant chat platform. Email should never be treated as an instant messenger.
Never. By delaying responses and utilizing automation, you transition your inbox from a chaotic, reactive communication tool into a structured project management pipeline.
Which brings us to the core realization for you, the listener. We're coming to the end of our strategic session today, and I think the biggest takeaway isn't about achieving a sterile inbox zero for the sake of vanity.
No, definitely not.
Because having 0 emails in your inbox doesn't magically make you a better professional or a more profitable business.
Right. Conquering an inbox is really about claiming agency over your professional life.
Yes.
It is about building a structural fortress around your ability to focus.
By setting up auto expiries for junk, unsubscribing ruthlessly from newsletters you haven't opened in 6 months, and completely separating your personal, social, and work email addresses, you're stopping the distractions at the absolute source.
You're patching the leak in the boat before the water even gets in.
Exactly. And there's a final, broader philosophical point to consider that builds on everything Rumor outlined.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Think about what an inbox actually represents in the modern workflow. If your inbox is treated purely as a to-do list, but it's a to-do list dictated entirely by other people's priorities, other people's emergencies, and other people's marketing algorithms,
Then you are entirely letting the outside world schedule your day.
that is a staggering way to look at it. If you don't control the flow of incoming requests, your career is just a series of reactions to whoever yelled the loudest.
It really is. Reclaiming your inbox isn't just an administrative software hack. It might actually be the very first necessary step in reclaiming your overall career trajectory.
You cannot chart a deliberate course for a business or a career if you don't hold the steering wheel.
And you cannot steer a sinking boat.
So true. Thank you so much for tuning into the Smart Keys podcast today. We hope this deep dive into the mechanics of email strategy gives you the tools and the mental models you need to stop bailing water and start building a better engine.
It's all about taking back control.
Absolutely. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss one of these strategic sessions. And we highly encourage you to read Felix Romer's full article to get all the granular step-by-step details on the workflows we discussed.
It's definitely worth the read.
The link to the full piece is available right now in the show notes. Until next time, keep your focus sharp and your inbox quiet.